And then I got to meet my cast. And that was incredible to have these young Asian American superstars that they knew my characters better than I knew them. And like everybody was there. I remember the first time I met my production crew, there was like 200 people from Taiwan in a room. I was still on a Zoom because I was in quarantine. And they introduced me and they all started applauding. And I found out it was the first time they ever got to work on a Hollywood movie about themselves. And that was huge. So I think that now is kind of what keeps me going, is that opportunity to work, to tell people's stories and how so many people feel seen and respected and honored and cared for by the works that I'm doing.
I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of Conductive Conversations. I'm really excited to speak with our guest today, Abigail Hing Wen, New York Times bestselling author, former lawyer, and tech exec. I had the pleasure of working with Abby during our time at Intel Capital, and Abby was by far the best attorney I ever worked with. She was super efficient, creative, knowledgeable, practical. You never really got the sense that she was charging you by the hour, which if you've ever worked with attorneys, you know they often speak slowly because that's what happens when you charge by the hour. Her debut novel, Love Boat Type A, became a global hit and was adapted into a feature film. But before she was writing coming-of-age love stories, she was clerking on the DC Circuit Court, working at Intel on AI and venture investments, and living a high-powered career in Silicon Valley. Today, we'll cover her path from elite schools to corporate boardrooms to best-selling bookshelves and explore how she balances identity, creativity, and courage across all stages of her life. But the real question I think everyone really wants to know, Abby, is what kind of music you like to dance to? Because as I understand it, you did a lot of ballet and dance in high school. And although this doesn't really show up on your LinkedIn profile, we're gonna circle back to this at the end. So let's dive in. At Conductive Ventures, our whole thesis is around investing in unconventional founders. And by all accounts, you've got an unconventional background, or what is seemingly an unconventional background. I don't know too many folks who write novels after having done what you've done. So we're going to get into all of this. But before I do, I'd like to start our conversation today really around kind of your early career and foundations. And so my first question is, can you tell us about your upbringing and how it shaped your early ambitions?
So I grew up in Ohio. I was born in West Virginia, of all places. It was from my dad's work, and then that took him to Ohio, rural Ohio, Lima, and then eventually Cleveland, which is a bigger metropolitan area. And the Midwest, it's a different place than California. It's in some ways a safe place to grow up, like family friendly. We would walk to school and play in the neighborhood baseball and all that. But it was hard growing up there as a minority because I just was made very conscious that I was different than everyone. And
were you the only Chinese family in this?
For a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, especially in rural, like Lima, Ohio.
How big was the city?
Lima is tiny. I don't even know what the population is. I think Solon, where I grew up, was 17,000.
And for example, like how many kids were in your class?
Yeah, so one high school, about 250 kids. So,
the whole high school?
Mm-hmm, whole high school.
Oh my gosh.
The entire city.
Okay.
So everyone kind of knew everybody, which on the one hand is nice, and but I think because I was so different, I didn't know why I was different. Actually, I really related to watching Beauty and the Beast when Bella turns out to be this immigrant girl, and I was like, oh, that's what happened to me. I didn't know that I was an immigrant, even though I knew that I had a sister. I just didn't know that other people didn't have that experience, and so I didn't understand why the things we talked about in my house, or the food we ate, and the food that I brought to school that nobody understood. I didn't understand why I was different. And so that actually just made me so self-conscious and self-aware in a way that I don't think I would have had growing up anywhere else. And so that ended up, that trauma, but also that richer life experience, I think, ended up informing a lot of the books. And the first one that I published, the Love Boat Type A series.
Interesting. Okay. And so when you think about your upbringing, how did this eventually get you into law? Why did you want to go down that path?
So I think this is not typical of other Asian Americans that I grew up with, or kind of my contemporaries, but my parents were activists in the community. So they actually would go to my high school, not because I was in trouble, but because some other Asian immigrant kid was in trouble, and they would go and help translate or help explain the cultural differences. And so they actually really cared a lot about representation. And so I kind of grew up with this expectation that, my English was great and I could present, and so therefore I should go and be a face for the community and give a voice to these people who didn't have a voice. Especially, they were very conscious of the fact that we only had Connie Chung on the news.
Yeah.
Very little representation. So I went to Harvard and I studied government and international relations. And then I worked in Washington, D.C. for a couple years. And, my Love But Taipei story is about a girl whose family wants her to be a doctor, but she secretly wants to be a dancer. And for me, it was that moment for me of making that choice to break from my family expectations was actually about going into government and public service.
What did your parents want you to?
They wanted me to go be a politician, be a face for the community. And I was working in DC on Capitol Hill, and I just felt like, wow, there's so many young people who had no life experience with too much authority and doing things that they had no idea what they were doing. And so I remember that time when I called my dad and I was crying. I'm like, I'm going to let everybody down. I'm not going to do the things that you want me to do.
And when you went to DC, it was sort of that path to running for office, potentially.
Potentially, yeah. I actually went down to work on a presidential exploratory committee. Person folded, and so I took a job on Capitol Hill. I ended up in the antitrust subcommittee. So that's actually where I started getting to work with the tech companies. That kind of was the beginning of it.
The antitrust subcommittee of Congress.
It's part of the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, antitrust subcommittee.
Okay.
So I was there during the Microsoft, the AOL Time Warner merger.
Oh, wow.
And we had lobbyists coming in from very early Amazon, eBay, PayPal, not PayPal, but eBay at the time. And so that was kind of the beginning of internet policy, internet legislation. And it was interesting to me, but.
So this was like your first foray into tech.
Yeah.
At least from an antitrust perspective.
Right. Yeah. And so, I was exposed to it in college in that, I had a lot of friends who had come from California and had worked in tech. But this is my first foray into it.
Wow.
And it was fascinating. I think I've always been fascinated by the kind of the macro look at this whole industry.
So you are in DC thinking about potentially running for office one day. What is that initial instinct that said, oh, maybe I should go to law school?
So it was somewhat in the same path. I was working in Congress. I didn't actually know what I wanted to do with my life, and I was surrounded by lawyers. And so whenever I went and got career advice, go to law school. You can do anything you want with law school. A law degree is flexible. And I found, now I'm on the other side of law school.
Yeah.
It's, it is true many, many years later. But when you first start out, you're practicing law.
Yeah.
And I loved law school because it was actually stories, one story after another, and you derive principles out of it, and that becomes case law, and it becomes the law of the land. And so that was fun, but then practicing law was not that interesting to me. It was a lot of dotting I's, crossing T's, especially at the junior level.
So you liked studying law, but you didn't actually like the art of practicing it.
I didn't try to practice it. Yeah. So
because I know you clerked for a district DC court. You also worked at Sullivan and Cromwell, really top-notch law firm. So you've had all this wonderful experience, and none of it you really enjoyed, it sounds like.
Yeah, I enjoyed a year of public service with my judge. I love getting to know my judge, who I just saw her last year. I still consider her a mentor, and I'm constantly quoting her to my kids. So she was the appellate court on the appellate court, DC Circuit Court of Appeals. So I think there were things I always took that were interesting from the work, and I actually see the benefits of having gone through all those things now years later. But I was doing corporate finance, like Wall Street practice, World Bank. And then when I came to California, I came with my husband, who wanted to be out here for the tech world. I kind of stayed under the radar for a couple of years, but writing my novels. And so that's actually when I was writing. But I kind of realized quickly that you can't make a living as a novelist. And so I went back and completed my training in law, and then.
Oh, wait, hold on. So you came out here with Andy, and then you weren't actually, you were actually writing full time.
I was. So I had actually given birth to my second child.
Okay.
And so I took that time, that maternity leave time, and then the fact that we were moving just to kind of take a break. So I actually stayed home for 3 years.
Oh,
with my younger kid.
That. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm actually really glad I did it, because
That's awesome.
realized with my younger one, I did miss things that I missed with my older one.
Yep.
And I was really fortunate that I had a resume that enabled me to go back to work really easily.
Yeah.
Although I often talk about it with women who think about taking time off.
Yeah.
It is a scary thing to do. And I remember towards the end of that 3-year period, I would walk around the mall and I'd see help wanted signs. I'm like, I think I might be qualified for that job, but feel like this really deep insecurity for not having worked for those years. But when I interviewed, it was no problem. And in fact, the most enlightened people I talked to They said they counted those 3 years actually because my judgment was just getting better and better.
Huh.
And then as a parent too, that your judgment and your ability to balance a lot of things, right? All that improves.
But during those 3 years, you were also writing.
I was writing the 2 novels, my first 2 novels.
And so did you always have this interest in writing?
I did not know I was creative. That was...
Wait, you did not know you were
I didn't
creative?
know I was creative.
You didn't have some like high school teacher that inspired you that said, oh my gosh, Abigail, this is a wonderful essay? Or
I think I didn't really believe anything that anyone told me. I didn't know what I remember when I graduated, when I got into Harvard, someone in Ohio said, oh, you're going to be a millionaire. And I was like, oh, no, that's ridiculous. So if someone told me that I was a good writer, I probably didn't hear it. I was also told that I was good at math and science, which I was good at. And that was part of the stereotype that we grew up with.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until...
But did you like writing?
I did.
Oh, you did?
But I didn't know until later. Like I wrote my whole life. I journaled. I started journaling when I was 9 and I just did that ever since. And every opportunity I had, even in law school with an open-ended assignment, I would write a short story. And actually I remember I wrote a short story in college and I put it on my website, and one of my friends, when our websites all came down, he actually preserved it. It was like, I was really surprised because I just kind of wrote it and threw it up there. But I guess it spoke to him. So like looking back, I could see that I'd had that all along, but I didn't know that I could capitalize on it.
So it's not like you had this vision when you were 7 years old and you're like, I see myself as a New York Times author.
No, I had no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd never read books that were about the things that I would write. That was actually a big learning for me. I loved Laura Ingalls. I loved Chronicles of Narnia, the Harry Potter books. And so, but none of those I always thought books were things that I didn't know. And I didn't realize to write a book yourself, it's about things that you do know. And those are the things that I never read in books.
So during this 3-year period, why did you decide to start writing a novel of all things?
So I
versus like reading physics books. And
Right.
It sounds like you were also good at math and science.
So I was, what was I doing? I was clerking on the DC circuit and I was on the path to being a law professor. And I'd done everything towards it. Like clerking was one of the benchmarks, working a couple years at a law firm. And I was supposed to write an article to go out on the market. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I'd done one. I did a student article and it won a national award. And it actually sounds like a fantasy novel, that student article. It was called Suing the Sovereign's Servant. It was about foreign sovereign immunities that applied to the servants of royalty who come to the United States and commit bad acts, right?
Correct.
So I think I wrote that.
And can't be prosecuted.
Exactly. So I wrote that, I think, because I love fantasy stories. And I was like as close as I get to writing a fantasy novel. But I did have an idea for that novel. And my husband was really encouraging. He's like, you're so excited about this novel. I guess I kept talking about it. And he's like, why don't you just try it? And at the time that felt like telling someone like, oh, why don't you just try building a rocket ship? Which I think is like what every entrepreneur probably feels like when you have a dream. But I did. And this novel just came pouring out of me. It's called Foxstone. It was a middle grade fantasy. And I sent it out in the world. And one agent printed it out, hand marked it up, and snail mailed it back to me. And she said, I really think there's something here. So I revised it for her.
And you had, after you wrote the novel, you had no idea if anyone would pick it up.
No idea. Yeah. It took me 3 years, I think, to write it. And during that period, my husband kept telling me, you need to show it to somebody. Like, because I'm just like writing, I was very happily writing it in obscurity. And finally, I started sending out into the world. And so, that one agent was encouraging, but I revised it for her and she turned me down. But I will say 10 years later, she became my agent for Love Boat Taipei, which is my first published novel.
Wow. So the same agent who basically gave you a lot of feedback, advice, said at the end of this process, I don't think this is going to work.
Yeah, she said, but send me your next one. And that would kind of be the pattern for the next 5 novels, because I buried 5 novels after that.
So you wrote 5 novels over what period of time?
About 10 years. Yeah, it took me 10 years.
And none of them got picked up.
None of them got picked up.
And you kept doing it.
I think after I wrote the second one, that's when I was like, okay, there really is something here that I'm still going.
So what kept you going?
There was always just enough bites. Like I had that, that agent who's like, send me your next book. I'm like, what next book? I don't have one. But then the next book came and I had critique partners who we were trading manuscripts. And so having that accountability and that feedback was helpful. But I will say that when Love Boat Taipei, it got rejected at draft 25. And at that point, I was like, I don't know what I can do. Like, this is my 5th novel that I'm
You
bearing.
drafted 25 versions
25 versions
of this novel.
Of this poor novel, yes.
And what's interesting is this is called your debut novel.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what most people don't realize is you had 5 failed novels.
That's right.
I mean, I hate to call it failed because you wrote them.
I had to shelve them.
But they didn't get picked up.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get bounded and didn't become a New York Times bestseller.
Right.
But you had 5 of these before that no one's ever read.
So this one actually is
Okay.
the last one I buried before Love Boat Taipei.
So this was the 5th one.
This is the 5th one.
Wow.
And I had to bury it. We'll talk about it more later, but it's about AI generation. And
Okay.
so I wrote it in 2015 and it was just too early.
Too early.
Nobody knew what it was.
Yeah.
So it never saw the light of day. It never went out to any publishers.
Okay.
But I'm thrilled that I get to publish it now.
Do you think the other 4, because the 5th one's now published.
Yep.
Do you think the other 4 have a shot? Because you have so much more experience, right?
Yeah.
You've got these 3, which have all been published.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a 4th, right? The Vale.
That's actually the 5th.
A 5th. What about those 4 that never saw the light of day? Do you think they have a shot?
So
knowing what you know about the business and everything?
So my agent actually still wants my first novel, the very first one that she ever saw.
She still remembers it?
It's middle grade. She still remembers it.
Wow.
And I've probably pulled some things of it that have ended up in the Vale, but it still has its own very high concept, really cool dual worlds. And so I think when I have the bandwidth, I do want to pull that out again. But I have a lot of projects before I get there. So The Vale is the 5th novel. I have a 6th one that's now, it's a graphic novel. It's coming out with Harper Alley. We haven't announced it yet. And so that's being illustrated. And then I have a picture book that I'm working on with an illustrator. And then I'm working on my, I guess, it would be my 7th novel that right now. So it'll be a while before I can get back to that first book. And I would have to revise it, to your point. Like, I'm a much better writer now.
You know, it's interesting, Abby, because I think because we've known each other for a while, when I left Intel Capital, I went to go raise a fund called Luma Capital Partners, which totally failed. And
I remember talking about it.
Yeah. And I felt this like massive sense of failure, dejection, like, what am I doing? Did you feel that at all after your first novel?
Yeah, I think because I had an agent with my 2nd novel, and it was read overnight, actually, that book. Oh no, my 3rd novel was read overnight by a major publishing house, and they couldn't get it through marketing. And so I was aware that there were structural issues at play. That was before Crazy Rich Asians and Hamilton opened up the world, like, hey, diverse stories can have big audiences. And then I did my MFA. And so doing my MFA, I think I was just in this wonderful community of people who believed in their work and believed in what they were doing, and getting, I was getting great feedback from my faculty. And so I think I always just had enough to keep me going. But I will say, when this one was rejected at 25, draft 25, that was the hardest moment for me.
So what kept you going? Because it ultimately got published. So what happened after draft 25?
So the funny thing is, it actually lines up with that time I was at Intel also, because I'd also gone out for 2 promotions, and you wrote me a recommendation letter. And I came in number 2 for both of them. And so at that point, I was like, I've split myself too hard. Even going to Intel, like leaving the corporate law firm life was a big step for me, like to come off that treadmill. I went because I got to work with cool people like you, and it was a great experience, and I got to see a lot of technologies. But then, a lot of our team left, and I was there just trying to get the novels off the ground. So I thought maybe I'd split myself too much, and I wasn't doing anything right. But everything did change at that point. So my critique partners came around me. They said, your stuff is good. There's some reason you're not getting picked up. They gave me great advice on the book. So I ended up scrapping the entire book, and I had to rebuild it from the ground up. But because I'd done all the work of writing that first 25 drafts, and what it was actually 5 points of view. The 4 characters actually that people love now that are on the poster behind you. Because I'd done all that work of knowing each character so well, when I rewrote the entire book just from one person's point of view, my main character Ever, it ended up being a really well-rounded story, and people really resonated with these key characters and their journeys. And so it ended up being a much stronger book for it, from having done all that work and having to revise it. And then I got a double promotion at work. And I think that is because I had put myself out there, and I got known by key people, and they knew what I really wanted to do. I was honest about what I really wanted to do. And so that gave me opportunities to speak on AI around the world. And as you know, the last thing I did for Intel was I hosted their AI podcast.
Yeah. I'm curious, Abby, for a lot of Asian Americans, for a lot of them to pursue something creative that is outside of engineering, law, medicine, which are like the holy trinity for any Asian American immigrant. Actually, any immigrant for that matter, not necessarily just Asian American. There's this sense that you have to first kind of pay your dues, which is go to college, much like your path. You did go down this law path, right? Being a very dutiful daughter, per se. And then what is seemingly like this massive U-turn of like, I'm going to go publish a novel now. And at some point you decide to quit your job at Intel, right? Because this thing takes off and you probably get a sense that like, hey, I can actually do this and make a full-time living doing this. But like, do you feel as though for a lot of Asian Americans, there's this sense of like, hey, I kind of have to go to college first, like whether you're, Jimmy O Yang, right, who went to college and then pursued a comedy career. I'm sure you meet a lot of creatives, particularly who are Asian American, who are like, man, I need to kind of do this. Then I can do what I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, it is a really hard call. I joke that my character, Eva Wong, she makes a decision earlier than I got to make it. And I've benefited from having this corporate life. Who knew, but now that I'm making movies, movie making is actually the 3 pillars of my life. It's finance, technology, and creative storytelling.
So in some ways it kind of prepared you.
It prepared me in a way that I had no idea that all these pieces of my life would come together. And then even having that legal background has been incredibly valuable because I'm never at a logjam with any kind of structure. Like if
you're like, I'll read this contract.
Figure it out. Like, so for example, like I have gaming interest and I had movie interest at the same time on a project, and most of the times like you got to do one or the other because you can't figure out the IP. But I'm like, oh, I can figure that out. That's easy. And like
I've done this before.
How do you figure? Well, it's like structured finance. Like that's what I did at Sullivan Cromwell. It's like bespoke structured finance for a particular project. And so I'm never stuck, like because I have that legal background. So I am grateful that I have that, but I've also seen people who started earlier. They published their first book out of college and they build a career that way. And so I think there's no wrong path. I think that's the path I had to take. Like I came up at a time there just weren't stories like this being published. And I'm really grateful that I stand on the shoulder of the giants who came before me.
So no regrets, no like, oh, I wish I was doing this 10 years earlier.
It's worked out.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I have these skills. And even now, like when I, as you know, the movie came out with Paramount, and as soon as I landed at Paramount, like I felt like I was at home because I'm like, I understand the corporation. And I think a lot of creatives get lost when they end up at big studios. And I didn't, because these are my people. Like I understood how this startup within a big corporation worked. It's like Paramount Plus.
If anyone told you this would be the arc or shape of your life, would you have believed it?
No, never. Never. I had no idea I could do this.
I think it's interesting how a lot of the experiences you had before, going down this really creative path really served to prepare you in so many ways, but you didn't know necessarily that all these building blocks, these foundational pieces would be intricately important to what you're doing now, actually, which is actually surprising for me to hear.
Yeah. I mean, even the technology that ends up informing my stories, like my second Love Boat novel, I had Sophie Hobby, a girl in tech. She's making an AI fashion app and trying to marry her fashion girly sensibilities with this like high power technology. And as you know, like the Vale is about an inventor family in Silicon Valley that creates an AI generated virtual fantasy world. And so all of that even has become fodder for my stories.
That's amazing. You talked a little bit about earlier, kind of navigating your way through Intel. Do you feel like at any point in time as an Asian American female, you were at a loss or you faced any sort of unique challenges?
Yeah, I had an opportunity to speak with a mentor, and I remember saying to her, I think I've been through everything every woman in Silicon Valley has been through. And, it wasn't easy going through it at the time, but I'm glad in retrospect, because it becomes something that I can share with people so that hopefully they won't run into it or they can kind of get through it sooner. But, one example, I'm sure we talked about it at some point, but I was there for 7 years before getting promoted, even though I was consistently a high performer. And there was a time when I found out I had closed 3 times as many deals as my colleagues.
See, I told you were efficient. I think that was in my beginning. I said you were efficient.
And I remember like sharing that with the powers that be when actually they found out with me. We were sitting in that room, we were counting up the deals. They're like, I'm like, so I closed 3 times as many deals as everyone in my group this year. And then they kind of they kind of downplayed it. They said like, oh, well, you probably have more access to deal flow. And so I think that was true for like our generation. Like we put our heads down, we did so much work, and we didn't get credit for it, or we weren't rewarded for it. And we didn't know how to talk about it. And I remember like at some point I started talking to my Harvard girlfriends, and we were like, I can't get promoted. I've been there forever. I can't get promoted at the same title. And once we started saying that to each other, we're like, wait, how is it that you can't get promoted? Like, you are the most competent person I know. You're the smartest girl in our class at Harvard. If you're not getting promoted, that there's something wrong. And so that actually was what woke us up. There was a whole bunch of us all around the country, and we were all struggling to get promoted. And so that's when things started to change. We started coaching each other, like, okay, this is how you ask for a promotion. We would hear stories about how other people asked for promotions, or like women who managed guys were like, oh, they would be like, oh, my money, my compensation is very important for me. My title is very important to me. Like, I didn't know you could say those things. So part of it was just learning how to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
But part of it, there was definitely implicit bias. I probably told you about this one, but I was invited by our China team to speak in China about AI. And a white man took the position away from me. It was already, the China team invited me. They were excited for me to come, and it was taken away from me. And he said of the other person that he gave it to, oh, that person has a resume that would be impressive in China. And that was a moment where I had to stand up for myself, and I had to say, I'm sorry to be the one to say this, but I too have a resume that would be impressive in China.
Exactly.
And this man didn't know China.
Harvard.
He was like, my family is from China, right?
Yeah.
I studied Chinese history and everything, but he was a white man telling me what the Chinese would be impressed with. And I didn't end up getting that speaking position back. But eventually another woman in my department gave me a speaking role at a women's general council conference in New York. And that became my first speaking opportunity, and nobody could take it away from me because there weren't any women in AI in our department. So that's the one they ended up building on.
So what advice, because you talked about earlier how you've given a lot of people kind of career advice. What advice do you often give to people in that position?
So part of it is learning to advocate for yourself and talking about what is it that you want, how you want to grow, and how do you align that with the needs of the corporation and the group. Part of it is actually finding allies that you will go to bat for and that will go to bat for you. Most of your career is actually determined by things that are said about you when you're not in the room. And I think that's something that we often don't think about, like when we're starting off. There's definitely a whole generation of people who didn't get tapped to be groomed for the leadership roles. And so I feel like actually I benefited from the church because I very early on I was a part of like the Christian fellowship at Harvard, and we were all tapped as leaders. Like I think there was something that was redeemed about that, where I was I was just affirmed as a leader, like, oh, go lead this Bible study, go lead the entire fellowship of 100 people.
Yeah.
And those opportunities persisted even, when I graduated, like in church and in like these community organizations, I was able to get leadership experience that I didn't realize like translated into the corporate world. And so I'm very comfortable running meetings and articulating agendas and, like all the things that come with being a leader.
Yeah, because you had so much practice.
I had so much practice, yeah. And so I actually, I didn't realize I could find that experience even outside of the workplace. And so today it pays off.
So when you give career advice around pivots, would you say that you had a career pivot?
Yeah, for sure.
Or it was just a different path?
Yeah, I did pivot pretty hard here.
What advice do you give to people who want to make this huge pivot?
I think I did take my time. I was careful. Like I said, I made that decision to go back to the law to finish my degree or finish my training, my apprenticeship. And then even when I had the book deal, it was one of the biggest deals of HarperCollins for several years. I still didn't leave. I kept working. And
how come?
Well, my agent did say take your time. Like she wouldn't recommend it right away. Like the book hadn't even come out yet. But I'd also heard in school, like even New York Times bestsellers, like they make a lot of money initially, but then it dries up. And so I didn't leave until we greenlit the movie. And again, my husband was part of that. He said to me, he's like, everybody wants to make a movie and you're actually making a movie in Hollywood. Why are you still doing this? He could see me stressing out about all these little things at work. And so I finally left. And the nice thing
So it was
was
Andy who actually encouraged you
he's
to...
the one who actually told me to go. And the good thing was that work had actually improved so much. Like I had gotten that double promotion. I was doing really cool things. And so my boss was making it really easy to stay, and just giving me a really flexible schedule. Like, let me go on book tours. Like, do not check your work email while you're on book tour for this. So there was a lot of reasons to stay. But the work was definitely just getting bigger and bigger on the creative side.
Yeah.
And
so what was that moment that you said, okay, I'm going to pull a trigger. I'm going to do this full time. I'm leaving the corporate life.
I think it was the big green lighting the movie, Love in Taipei, because I wanted to learn everything about making movies, start to finish.
And you really wanted to pour yourself in.
I wanted to pour myself into it. And it was, I wanted it to be my first movie, not my last movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was time.
Interesting. Any regrets?
No, not at all. I love it. I'm having a great time.
That's awesome. Okay. So I am really curious about the first novel you wrote. And what was it that, because you told me that it kind of failed. No one picked it up, but your agent who greenlit this one kind of worked with you, gave you some advice. What enabled you to just say, I'm going to write a second one, versus just saying, you know what, didn't work out. It was fun, right? It was like a hobby.
Yep.
But what enabled you to go from one to actually go, you know what, I'm going to write another one?
Yeah.
What was that inspiration?
I had an idea for another novel. Okay. So that's really what it was. I have infinite ideas actually for novels. So even today, like the exercise is just focusing on which ones are the ones to bring forward now. Like I mentioned, I have multiple novels.
You never feel like, as a creative person, I'm going to run out of good ideas?
No, I have infinite ideas. Yeah, nonstop, all day long. They come to me, and the hard part is actually filtering them out.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I have heard other writers tell people who are just like forcing themselves to write the novel, like, I give you permission to give up. If it's not coming to you, if it's not fun, if it's not life-giving, like, unless there's some reason that you feel like you just want to make it happen, like, it's okay to go do something else. It's really hard to write a novel. It's really hard to publish. I hate launching books because it's so much work. So it's nice to have it in the world, but yeah, it's so much work. And for me, I do it because I have to. Like, I have all these ideas that want to come out. I have all these stories to tell, and they just need to come out.
So in many ways, you feel called. Enough. You feel called to write.
I have so many stories, so many more to go.
And yet what's interesting is you never pursued this until you did sort of a lot of other things first. Yeah. But it's not like you were writing novels since you were 7.
But I've been telling stories since I was 7.
Got it.
Yeah. I told stories to my brother and sister when we were little. And some of them, I actually think that these in some ways encapsulate those stories, like kids in a world without adults trying to figure out the world and being heroes with their own stories.
So it wasn't necessarily just in the written form, but you were still a storyteller.
I was telling oral stories. I, as I mentioned, I wrote short stories. So I have been doing this my whole life. I just didn't know it. And even that article I mentioned that I wrote, Suing the Sovereign Servant, there was as much story in there as I could fit.
That's interesting. All right. So one of the things you talked about earlier was you left when Love Boat Taipei became a movie. You wanted to spend so much time kind of pouring yourself. So as you go through this creative medium from the written word to now, a movie, what have you learned that are very different in these two mediums?
Well, writing a novel is a very solitary endeavor. It's you and the page. And even when you get an agent, an editor, they will often usually defer almost all the copy edits, even to the author. So that's like kind of its own experience. But then when you translate it to the film, there's 300 people involved. And that was really fun for me because it is lonely to be a novelist. But then I had a community that came along with it. And I remember the first time we actually filmed in Taipei at the height of pandemic, and Taiwan was doing an amazing job with COVID management. So we did 2 weeks of quarantine, which was like a writing retreat for me. And then I got to meet my cast. And that was incredible to have these young Asian American superstars that they knew my characters better than I knew them. And like everybody was there. I remember the first time I met my production crew, there was like 200 people from Taiwan in a room. I was still on a Zoom because I was in quarantine. And they introduced me and they all started applauding. And I found out it was the first time they ever got to work on a Hollywood movie about themselves. And that was huge. So I think that now is kind of what keeps me going, is that opportunity to work, to tell people stories and to have so many people feel seen and respected and honored and cared for by the works that I'm doing.
Did you write the script for Love Boat Taipei?
I didn't write the script.
Okay.
So I was an executive producer, so helped to choose the screenwriter and then made comments on the script. And then I was on set the whole time making comments as we were filming.
Because I don't know that much about Hollywood, but how come if you're such a great writer in terms of writing this story, how come you couldn't then write the script? Because no one would know the story better than you.
Yeah, no, it's such a great question. It's so insightful. And this is why you're such an effective venture capitalist, which I know from working with you at Intel and and just seeing your career take off too. But I actually do think the authors should write as many scripts as they can. And I'm fortunate now to be a part of Ride Back Rise, which is an accelerator started by Dan Lin. He's the chairman of Netflix Films. And it's there to help POC creatives kind of get a step up in Hollywood, people who have had some success and kind of take it to the next level. And so there I'm actually writing the script to The Vale.
Oh.
And I wrote the script to my fourth novel, Kisses, Codes, and Conspiracies, which just came out last year.
Got it.
And it's only been 6 months. And
is it different?
It's totally different.
Oh, it's totally different.
It's
Why?
definitely a different medium, but you're absolutely right. Like as the author, the source material, it's like so easy for me to like put it down on paper. And even on set for Love in Taipei, it was so easy for me to catch those moments when something was missing or the character was off, and I could just kind of course correct the whole time. And that saves the studio a lot of money because you don't have to do reshoots. And so there was so much of that I ended up doing. So I am a big proponent of authors adapting their work if they can, but some people don't want to do it because you do have to learn the skill of redacting a lot.
Well, and I think that's why people often say the book was better. But I wonder if people say that because as you said, the author doesn't often write the script. So you have some other person who has to first read your novel.
Right.
Digest it, understand it. And it's kind of what they decide to pull in to the script.
Right.
And so oftentimes you hear this, right? Like, oh, I read the book. It was way better than the movie. And that's like a very common refrain, I feel like. And I wonder if that would be somewhat mitigated if you actually had the author writing the script.
I think it can help a lot, but it is a different experience. So writing The Vale, for example, it's like a 400-page novel that ends up being a 100-page script. And I have to make creative choices to become more economical about how we set up the story. But I can also lean into the visuals. Like the book might take 1,000 words to describe one little moment, and you can see it in like a second on the screen. And so those are opportunities to make trade-offs. But it's definitely harder. And I actually feel like in this case, because it's an opportunity to just continue to iterate on the story, that the script is going to end up being better than the book, which I hope will be the case.
When you write novels now, since a number of your books now have become movies, do you think about it cinematically now as you're writing a novel?
Yeah, so I think I've always been cinematic, but I didn't know that. That was something that people reflected back to me with the third novel I wrote that didn't publish. That's the one I got a big agent with, and everyone at that point was talking about movie rights for that book. It never sold. It was actually the one that got read overnight at a major publishing house. Couldn't get their marketing, but that's actually when I got the bug because everyone was talking about movie rights, and I was like, oh, that'd be so cool. It didn't happen. But I think for me, the exercise is I see the picture in my brain and I write down what I see so that other people can see it too.
Interesting. Okay.
So I already have it, but I have writer friends who they only think in words, which is fascinating to me. And so their writing is very different. Like you can see it on the page that they think in words.
Do you think, since a number of your books will become movies, do you want every single novel to become a movie?
Possibly.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't think I've written one that I don't see as a movie or a TV series. But,
so it could.
But I guess there might be an exercise that's book only. I just haven't done that yet, if there is one.
Okay. I'm just trying to think, are there books where you're like, that would be a terrible movie, but it's a phenomenal book?
Yeah, there's probably always going to be a way. I mean, part of me, the creative fun of it is like coming at the same story in different ways.
Yeah.
And like with Love Boat Taipei, the book was criticized for not having enough of Taipei in it. And the movie got to do that because the movie, you just show it all. Like you show the kinetic energy of the dancing, you show like the landscape, the skyscape of Taipei. And that's what a movie's good at doing. So
do you take any kind of criticism from reviewers, et cetera, and funnel some of that into your next novel, or you just don't care?
Great question. I was advised not to read your reviews have like a trusted person read them for you and forward you the ones that you should read.
Okay.
I love feedback. I'm constantly getting feedback. And so I think it just all goes into some repository. And yeah, I'm sure some subtly it'll come out in the next works.
In future works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you actually do read all of them?
I don't read my reviews.
Oh, you don't?
No,
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will sometimes get tagged on things, and then I'll probably read those and reshare them.
As you've kind of dived into the movie making business, what has been the biggest surprise about Hollywood for you? Because this is like a world that you knew nothing about.
Yeah. What has surprised me the most about Hollywood? There was a bigger gap than I expected between the authentic voice of like an Asian American work and like what people understood. So I found I had to work to close that gap very diplomatically.
Can you expand on that?
So there's a lot of talent in Hollywood that I think has been untapped. When my book was announced, I started hearing from all these actors and musicians in Hollywood, Asian Americans, that had won Academy Awards, they'd won Emmys, and that was the only thing they ever did. And it made me realize like there's just so much untapped talent that doesn't have opportunities. And so that's partly why I was so motivated to get this book to the screen, because I knew it would create 300 jobs for these people to take another step and gain more experience. So I think there's just so much talent. I think that was a big part of it that we've never seen. Like we just don't get to see them. And then Hollywood's going through a hard time right now. It's an industry like any other. And with the streaming wars and the strikes, there were a number of strikes in Hollywood. And then of course, pandemic,
and AI.
Yeah. And AI, absolutely. All that is like really shaking the industry. And so as an entrepreneur coming into this world, it's an advantage for me to come in, also as an outsider, to come in and think like, okay, how can we do this differently and more efficiently? So for the Vale, we ended up doing a short film prequel. So it's a proof of concept. It's also my directorial debut, and it's half animation, half live action. And normally animation is very expensive, but I was able to do the whole short film for $120,000.
Wow.
And we created a very efficient pipeline. The whole production lives on Discord, which is not something that is typical in Hollywood. I think bringing in those efficiencies, and actually part of the reason why animation is so expensive is like Pixar makes the same movie 5 times because there's so many comments. Like we did a lot of the work up front and made sure we didn't have to do as many iterations on the back end. And so just like those efficiencies that I've learned from working in, with really great people in Silicon Valley, like I bring that knowledge to the work that I'm doing. And I'm also really glad to have lots of folks involved and getting to refine and learn from this process too.
Wow, that's really cool. All right, kind of shifting to kind of identity, representation, and culture. How do you think your Asian American identity, which you talked about a little bit earlier, has kind of shaped your voice as a writer and a professional?
So I grew up visiting my family in the Philippines. My mom's from the Philippines, my dad's from Indonesia, and then my grandparents are from China. So I've always had this very multicultural house. And when I would go to the Philippines, I would hear my family talking about foreign affairs, and it would be a very different story than the story I was hearing in Ohio. So I think from an early age, I always understood there were multiple stories to every side. And I think that's true for a lot of Asian Americans. Like when you live between cultures, like you understand, like you inherently understand there's miscommunications and that things have to be translated.
Yep. So
I think a lot of Asian Americans understand this inherently, that there are many stories, many sides to a particular issue, and that makes us bridge builders. We're bridge builders in our corporations, in our communities. Like I think that makes us better listeners, and we'll understand, and we can help to bring people together. And that's something that I try to do with all my work. So I'm trying to build bridges between these communities.
Got it. When you think about, I'm sort of curious how much of your personal experience kind of goes into these books?
I would say the characters all belong to you. So there's something of me in all of them. In The Vale, the family is a neurodiverse inventor family in Silicon Valley. And in acknowledgements, I talk about my own family. Like at the table, the 4 of us would sit down, we discuss AI and ethics. We talk about our creative projects. We troubleshoot and brainstorm with each other. And so I think in many ways, that's like our family. Like we build together, we create together.
Do you think most writers write about what they know about through their own personal
I think
experience?
you have to.
Or do you think they actually write about stuff they have no idea about? Because there is that exploratory process of writing about and learning about something that you have no idea about.
Yeah. So I think what you bring to that type of journey is your interest. So that's your voice, your interest in this particular subject that you want to spend time researching and the lens that you put on that. And so I do think you have to write what you know. And it could be that you know it because you've put in the work,
right?
Because you're driven to do that. Or it could be writing about things in your family.
Does that then make it harder for authors to write in an interesting way when you're really young? Because you just haven't had much life experience.
Yeah.
If you're writing about stuff you know.
Right. Yeah, I think even a young person can have a unique lens on the world, but it is more common, for young artists to apprentice. And that's why you see a lot of derivative works initially, or, you see like in France, like these little kids are in the museums, like copying the paintings of the masters. Like that's how you learn. So definitely I always encourage anyone who wants to write, like they should read widely and then also read widely in the genre that they're interested in working in.
What's your creative process? Like when you think back to when you wrote your first novel and then your second, third, fourth, fifth, has your process changed much in terms of how you write a book?
I think I usually start with a high concept.
Okay.
So Love Boat Taipei was about a girl going on this love boat trip, which you also went on. It's a real program in Taiwan. It's been around since the 1960s. And I wanted to novelize it. It was a picture, an experience in Asian America that nobody really knew about outside our community. And this one too, I think it started off as this idea of like a dual world because it goes back and forth between the real world and this AI generated fantasy world. The high concept I think was this AI world. And then I had to figure out like who the characters are, what the storyline is, what their arc is, what the journey is of the whole story. And then I iterate a lot. I'm very, very iterative. So my agent knows that about me. If I give you my first draft, there's no emotions, the characters are flat, and it's just like things that are happening as I'm figuring out the world. So it's actually very hard to evaluate my first draft. And I also write backwards, which not everyone does, but I usually know the climax. And then I have to work backwards to figure out how to set this up properly. So that's also why it's hard for people to read my first drafts because there's no beginning to start. You just kind of like find your way slowly to the end.
As you've talked with other creative authors, is everyone's process very different?
Everyone's very different. Okay. I know someone else who doesn't know what's going to happen next, so she writes to a cliffhanger one after another. And so for her, the challenge is actually making everything resolve in a satisfying way.
And do you think that your process has been refined over the many novels that you've written now?
I think what's been refined is just my confidence that I'll get there.
Okay.
Because when you're in the spaghetti, that's can be very, it can be scary. And that's true for starting a company. Like you just don't know.
Yeah.
Like you're putting all your eggs in this basket in that moment and you have no idea if it's going to work out.
Right.
But I have found that over time I get there. And sometimes it means like I need to show it to a trusted reader and they can give me an outside perspective. Sometimes I need to let it sit aside for a while. So The Vale actually, it didn't see the light of day because it's about AI generation. But there was also a problem at the beginning. Like I just couldn't figure out where to start it. I started in all kinds of places. And then one day, I think, shortly after we were filming the movie of Love Boat Taipei, it came to me. I'm like, oh, that's the solution. But sometimes it just takes time. And you have to allow yourself to just let your ideas percolate.
And for every single book that you've written, is it been pretty consistent? Like where you write backwards?
Oh, yeah. I do think I write backwards for everything.
Okay.
Yeah. I've tried outlining, but then even that outline, I think, comes from that place where I know where it's going to end.
Interesting. What have you tried any new process that has actually worked or that you've adopted?
I mean, I think I've tried everything in the course of writing the books. Even like turning it into a screenplay. Like I was doing that slightly at the same time that I was writing the novel or kind of finishing up the novel. And so ideas came out of that because I was approaching it with a different lens. And some of those ideas end up in the novel.
All right. So I am curious. I have no idea like where this falls in, but you've reinvented yourself many times, right? You had this path where you were potentially running for public office. You then went into tech and corporate. And then obviously now you're an author and a director and you make movies. So when you think about like how do you then handle kind of fear or self-doubt when you're making such major decisions in which at each of these moments, you don't really know what the outcome will be. And there is a potential for failure. So it's not like success was going to be guaranteed because you were going in very different directions. How did you think about that?
Well, it definitely helps that I'm starting to build a track record for myself, like within myself. So, I'm glad you mentioned that I was thinking about running for office, because in some ways I'm back to where my parents originally wanted me, but it was a very different path than any of us expected. Like, I am now doing a lot of public speaking about ideas and providing a voice for the community and talking about these issues that we cared about. And so I've had a number of those full circles, like coming full circle with my agent, seeing the Vale come to life again. And so I've had enough of these now that I can see, like, there's gold to be mined, even if things don't work out the first time. And I do believe that perseverance and continuing to take shots is really the name of the game. And so that's what I continue to do. But it's definitely hard because I'm taking bigger and bigger and bigger swings.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned, like the short film, I had no idea how to go about doing that. Someone said, why don't you do a short film as your directorial debut? And then I found out how to raise the money for it. And I'd never raised money before. And then I found out you can't even make money on a short film. It's all donation. Like, how am I going to raise donations? Like, this much money in donations? And then it happened. So Dave Liu was my first money in. And then after that, I think I raised in like 2 weeks. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was just, and so all those kind of build my confidence. So we're going to take another big swing next, and that's coming. So, and I'm so glad each time is like the biggest swing I've ever taken.
So there's actually no money in doing a short film.
There's no money.
It's just literally people want to do it for.
It's a calling card. Wow. Yeah, it's a calling card. It's a proof of concept. And then there's usually no distribution for it. So it has to go through the film festival circuit. But the cool thing about being in the tech world is I'm told that from the beginning, right? There's no distribution for your short film. But now that I have a short film, like, people are making introductions to me as people who are starting to create platforms for short films. So that's actually the other cool thing. Like, you kind of do it and you continue to find those opportunities to keep building. And I think just staying responsive and flexible, you're always pivoting. I guess back to your point, like there's always opportunities to pivot and take new opportunities.
How do you then weigh some of these risk reward decisions? As you said, you're going for bigger and bigger swings now.
Yeah.
How do you make those trade-offs?
I think there's just always a lot of thought that goes into it. I feel really lucky just to have a lot of wonderful people that I can go to for advice and sounding boards. For example, like, we got into a couple wonderful film festivals, but we're not going to be ready by the time those film festivals come. But because I got into those festivals, I was able to have conversations with people who've been through the process, and they advised me, like, what is the strategy for festivals? Like, I knew nothing about this world. So having mentors and just people who are really just generous with their advice, I think that's been huge for my progress.
That's awesome. I love that. Do you have any daily habits, rituals, routines that help you stay focused or inspired? Because you said something interesting to me is, like, you have so many ideas. Yeah. You never feel like you'll ever run out of ideas, which I wonder, with the community of creatives that you're now, in community with, is that true for everyone? Or do they feel like a songwriter where it's like, oh, that was like my last hit, and everyone often will chase that last hit?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's really, there's so many types. There's definitely people who, sitting through classes, I know sometimes the classes, like, how do you deal with writer's block, or how do you refill the well? And so I know that people need that. I don't tend to need that. Like, I need other things, like, how do you streamline the opening? So my needs are a different set. Let's see, what's the question?
So my question is, do you have any routines that, really help you stay focused or inspired? Because I always wonder if there is literally like an infinite number of stories that a storyteller has, and then what kind of continues to fill that well so that it keeps producing all these interesting ideas, right? Because you look at artists, whether it's singers, songwriters, you think about novelists, they're not creative and, let's say, relevant for 40 years or 50 years, right? Some might be a one-hit wonder. Some will come back and I don't think Snoop Dogg is writing
Mhm.
new reps, but he's singing a lot of his old ones, which, get brought back
Mhm.
as well and or revived, right, in many respects.
Yeah. So I think I'm constantly having to pare things out of my life
Yeah.
to stay focused. And I am really disciplined. So I know what my commitments are. And I also think a lot about what is it that only I can do. So I have a huge team working on the short film, and there's a lot of things I could do. I could schedule meetings. I can, manage people or give feedback or run interference here. I can, there's a lot that I can do myself, but then I always have to step back and like, am I the one to do that? Or should I actually be focusing on generating the story and, doing the reviews of the animation as it's coming through? And so that helps me to focus, like pulling back and thinking about where's my value added. I have small like daily rituals. Like I always have like a cup of chai in the morning. I think exercise is really important for just keeping your body strong and getting outside of your head and staying healthy. I used to, when I was working, I would write at night, so 9 to 12 at night, and I kind of just, that was when my brain turned on. I think I also audited myself and know like when am I freshest for creative work and when is it that I'm going to start to peter out and need other support. So I find that changing mediums helps me. So I will often listen to my book read through an e-reader, and that defamiliarizes the story enough for me that I can listen to it and critique it. It's not as efficient as reading it word for word with my eyes, but I catch things like auditorially that I don't catch
sort
visually.
of a different medium.
Different medium.
Yeah.
So, and then that keeps me focused in a different way. So then I can go longer on that particular project on that particular day.
What's the biggest difference between, let's say, this creative path that you've taken and this journey versus if you were to compare that with your experiences at Intel or when you were clerking or, you were a corporate attorney?
So when I look back on my life, I think a lot of the themes have stayed consistent. So I cared about representation. I cared about women's leadership. And so even at Intel, there was a fund that I was very inspired by that was dedicated to women and underrepresented minorities. But even, thinking about those issues with HR, with our teams, like how do we give women entrepreneurs coming in the door a fair shake, and making sure that they're asked the same questions that their counterparts are asked. So all those themes have always been there in all my work. And it continues to be in my work now as a writer and in the public speaking that I do.
Nice. All right. So this is, you know what? How do you ever deal with like creative burnout?
I can tell when I'm starting to feel it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you do to put it at bay?
I kind of just take a little step back. There's been times like, even just like, it's almost like even like on a week by week basis. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to feel a little burned out. So let me just take a step back, go walk around a museum, go on an extra long hike, do something fun with the dog and the family. I'm going to travel this weekend. We decided like, okay, let's just go travel and have fun.
Yeah. Do you ever feel pressure to push out a book?
Yes. Kisses, Codes, and Conspiracies was the one that I think I was really under deadline for.
Okay.
This one, interestingly, it's probably the most young adult of my books. It's a young adult thriller. The Love Boat books, they feel to me, even though they're contemporary stories, they actually feel like fantasy stories to me because it's a lot of world building. It's like a portal fantasy is, you go through a portal to another world, you have an experience in this other culture, you come home transformed. And that's really what the Love Boat Taipei story is, even though it happens to be like a girl from the United States going to Taipei. But Kisses, Codes, and Conspiracies is much more like streamlined, like character driven, very, very pacey. And I had to write it very quickly. So
how quickly?
I think it was a year and a half, so much shorter time than I've spent on all my other books. And so I feel like you can tell, like when you read it, like you can see there's less of that immersive world building because that's not part of the genre.
Yep. I think what's interesting is that the types of books that you write never existed before, meaning like it was literally a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah.
And it's really your creative ideas and your words that you put on paper that really put this story together. Very different than like nonfiction when you're writing about, let's say, a historical figure or a biography or whatnot, right? Like that tends to be a lot of research, and then you take that research and then put it into a book. But I imagine, what do you think is like the biggest challenge of, creating something from nothing effectively?
I think it's like believing that this is a real book, because like none of these books, and even my editors, the reason why my editor likes my work is she's like, I've never read anything like it.
Hmm.
But when you're actually doing that, when you're writing this like crazy thing, I'm like, is this a real book? And I felt that way about all my books. Like, is Love Boat Taipei a real book? Like about a girl going to Taipei for this like program. Kisses, Codes, Conspiracies, about 3 Palo Alto high school teenagers being chased for the cryptocurrencies that have accidentally come into their possession. I'm like, I've never seen that. Is this a real book? But then it's really fun, like once you put it out in the world and just to see people responding to it, and that's the fun of it. So yeah.
As a writer, like I imagine if you're a movie maker, when you watch other people's movies, it's hard to just sit there as, let's say, a consumer and enjoy it.
I never want to go see movies now. I'm like, that's work.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, are you dissecting like, I didn't really like that intro. That was kind of weak. What I would have done is like, do you have to catch yourself? Like if you're a chef, you're eating at someone else's restaurant, you're like,
it's definitely work.
Oh, that was a little salty. Like I probably would have like reduced the acidity in that dish or something. Like,
Well,
do you find yourself dissecting?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
So I judged the Golden Trailer Awards, which is like the Oscars of trailers.
Okay.
And so I saw every single trailer for this year.
Wow. Okay.
So whenever my husband brings up a movie, I'm like, yeah, I saw the trailer. Yeah, and it does feel like work. I think my bar is very, very high now for what I want to see just for pleasure.
Okay.
But
but do you ever feel like you would just want to turn it off?
I wish I could. I don't think I can. I think it's spoiled already. But there are shows that I still love. Like I've been binging Suits, actually.
Oh.
Which my husband got into first, and so I started watching it. I'm a lawyer, so
yes,
I didn't think I'd watch it, but it's actually really well done on the legal side too.
It's accurate.
It's pretty accurate. Okay. Yeah.
So have you seen Silicon Valley ever?
I never got into that one.
Okay.
My husband watched it.
I was going to ask you how you felt about it, because people always ask me about it, and I'm like, that's my life. Yeah. And so I watched a couple episodes, and I always felt like I don't want to watch what my life is.
It was too close to home, probably.
It's way too close to home.
I think that's probably why I wrote my Silicon Valley versions. These are like, this is the story that I wasn't seeing told and I wanted to tell. Yeah. So yeah. So I think, like in the Vale, my family, like the mom is a roboticist. Like she's played by Lea Salonga in the short film, and she's a roboticist. She's also like a mother, she's a wife, right? And so I love writing these, and she brings her art and her feminine sensibilities to the work that she makes. So she creates these cute robots. And then the Vale, of course, it's a beautiful world that her kid's inhabiting. So I think I wanted to bring those diverse perspectives even to the technologies. That is, as you know, it's a very male-driven space. Of course. Still.
How do you juggle all this? Because you're a mom of 2 boys. I know Andy, he's fantastic. You guys have such a wonderful family. How do you juggle all this and all make it work?
Yeah, I remember when I was at Harvard hearing panels of women saying that you couldn't have it all.
Yeah. You feel like you have it all?
So they said you couldn't have it all at the same time. Okay. And you would have to time shift. And I think that's what I've done. Like I took those 3 years off with my younger child, and that was really rewarding. And it didn't end up hurting my career. I think it helped my career because I came in more mature, more sure what I wanted. I had more skills as a mother because you're running around after your kids and keeping them alive, and like logistics of that. And
listen to that, Robin.
Patience,
keeping them alive. Robin's expecting.
There you go. No, like these are wonderful life skills that. And I remember when I went back to work after those 3 years.
You don't need to keep your employees alive. you hope at a certain age they learn how to wipe their noses and
Yeah, no, I remember when I went back to work, I was immediately put on this 10-day grueling project, and we had to stay up all night, day after day after day, and I could do it. It was no problem. There was this 24-year-old kid that couldn't, like he was wiped out, but I'm like, I stayed up all night, with the kids, so no problem. So I think, I don't think I had it all at the same time. Okay. But keeping your priorities in front of you, like family is the most important, and like my older kid actually has been struggling with long COVID for 2 years. Right. And so my life for 2 years has just been like the creative work and managing long COVID. Yeah. Unfortunately, he's coming out of it now, and we're thankful.
That's really good. Okay. So we're going to go into like rapid fire fun questions, and then I definitely want to spend time talking about the Vale, because obviously we'll do this in conjunction with the launch. Yeah. All right. So these get very simple and straightforward, and then maybe perhaps more seemingly absurd.
All right. Well, you answer them too then.
It doesn't work like that, Steve, actually. Okay. But no. All right. What is your favorite color?
Green.
Favorite fruit?
Hard one. I'll say cherries for now because they're in season.
Okay. Favorite animal?
Otters.
Favorite sport?
Dancing.
Okay. And we're talking about that a little bit more too. Do you like spam?
Spam the food?
The food.
Or not the thing that comes
You're
in
not
your
the
inbox?
first to actually say this. I'm going to have to say like spam masubis or something next time.
I do not enjoy the spam in my inbox.
Yeah.
I do love spam, actually.
You do love spam?
Yeah,
okay.
very common in the Philippines.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Wherever
The American
U.S.
soldiers.
and the Army GIs, yes,
Yeah.
100%. What's the last book you read?
Ooh, I'm reading Mike Lowe's book, Stranger in the Land.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Okay.
which we read his last.
Yes, I know.
It's
I
awesome.
know. It's great. You know, he was just on the Daily Show.
Yeah, he's doing
with
great.
Ryan yeah,
I'm so thrilled to
I
see
hope
it.
he's having fun. I know when we hosted that thing, he seemed tired.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to launch a book.
Yeah. Well, you would know.
Yeah, it's like a year-long endeavor.
My goodness.
Yeah, constantly getting word out.
It seems like it's doing really well.
Yeah, I'm really proud of him.
Okay. What's the last movie, not trailers, what's the last movie or show you watched?
Oh, so I'm watching Suits
Yeah, you
on
mentioned that.
Netflix.
Okay. And what's the last movie you saw?
Gosh, the last movie. I'm sure I've seen a bunch. I can't remember. I see them nonstop. Oh, I saw Get Out. Get Out was so scary and awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite podcast other than Conductive Conversations?
I'm not a big podcast listener.
Okay.
Yeah, I hosted Intel's AI podcast, as you know, but I don't.
Maybe you just did it too much, and you're like,
I think it's like the ADHD. Like I can't listen too long. To things. Oh.
I've actually found that like on longer drives, like when I'm driving up to San Francisco, a good podcast is
that gets
really,
you through it.
Yeah, it's much more. At least I'm paying attention to driving. Yeah. What's your go-to for downtime?
I think long walks.
Okay. All right. What would you eat for your last meal?
Oh, yikes, that's dark. Last meal. Probably Chinese food.
Okay. And then what did you eat for dinner last night?
We had dinner. I can't remember.
Everyone always says that too. It's like, it was literally like 10 hours ago.
I think I had Mexican food.
Okay.
Yes, Mexican food.
Okay. What's something you're not good at right now that you wish you were good at?
Well, I'm about to fundraise, so that'll be new for me. Besides this fundraising,
Yeah, you fundraised
I did
successfully
that.
for
So
this
I think it's different. We're gonna fundraise for the feature film.
Okay. All right. What's something you did as a kid that you no longer do anymore?
I used to play baseball, softball. With all the neighborhood kids, and I did Little League and all that.
Okay. All right. What's your favorite writing snack? Like, do you nibble while you're writing?
Yeah, probably grapes.
Okay. And what's a book you wish you had written?
Ooh. It's a good one.
Maybe it's your next one.
I love the Narnia books.
Oh, you love the Narnia
one of my
books.
dream projects is actually to direct A Horse and His Boy, which is featuring an Asian girl.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very cool. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Go for it.
Okay. And here's the last one. What's one thing people often get wrong about you?
A lot. Let's see. I think I remember when we got married, our pastor, like, something didn't happen, and he was really worried that I would be upset about it, but I'm not that kind of bride. So I think there's like a lot of little I don't sweat a lot of little things.
Okay. All right.
But for some reason, people think I would.
That you would. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the Vale, because this I think we definitely want to feature. So the Vale is launching on
September 16th.
September 16th. What was like the initial inspiration for this?
It's hard to remember because I wrote it in 2015. It was my creative thesis at my
because this was your fifth book
my fifth
that
book.
got canned.
Yep.
Why do you think it got canned?
It was about AI generation. So nobody knew what that was.
Right.
I knew what it was. People in Silicon Valley knew what that was,
Right.
but it was just too early for its time.
Really needed that kind of ChatGPT moment.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
For the mainstream to be like, I get it.
I get it. Totally. So I don't even know I think I was fascinated by the technology. I love fantasy stories, but I wanted to write like a real world hero in our time. So this inventor family is the one that builds the fantasy world. And I think there's like a love for fantasy. Like you want to go live in Narnia or like, Middle Earth and go visit these places. And so that's what the story is about. It's a kid who can put on his headset and go live in the virtual fantasy world that he's created, with his denizens that he's also dreamed of.
Do you think that because it was a book that was really ahead of its time, that was the only reason why it didn't get picked up? Or do you think there were other reasons?
I think I'm a better writer today, for sure. And I mentioned that there were problems at the beginning. I couldn't figure out exactly what the right starting point was. So I think those things I worked out over time. I think, I think that's probably it. It's really like the high concept. It was too ahead of its time, and then I'm a better writer today.
Do you ever feel like when you write something, because you don't really know you won't know until it happens that if it gets picked up or not.
Right.
So when you're done writing this and you're going to vulnerably share this with your agent and then see if any of the publishing houses actually pick it up, do you ever then maybe self-censor in a sense yourself to write in a way where it could have a higher probability of getting picked up versus not, versus staying truly authentic to your process of like, hey, this is what I want to write about. And if no one else wants to read it, who cares?
Yeah. I think I was probably that way earlier on.
Okay.
Not my first book, because that one I didn't know what the industry wanted. I just wrote it. But my third one, I remember sharing it with my critique group, and they said, "Oh, I think they said they thought I was just taking the editor's comments too much to heart, and it wasn't really me anymore."
Yeah.
And I appreciated that. So I think where I am now is I will write the book that I want to write, and if it doesn't publish, that's okay. I think there's no point in writing the book that I don't want to write.
Yeah.
And writing a book that panders. And
yeah.
I have turned down book deals for just those types of books. I'm like, I don't feel it. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to spend 2 years writing that book that I don't really care about. So I can only write about things I care about.
Is it about 2 years a book for you?
Okay. Yeah, I think it'd be nice if I could do it in 1 year, but it just takes time for the ideas to percolate.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I mentioned I'm working on the 7th novel, and that one I've actually been percolating probably since 2013.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of your books, like Kisses, Codes, and Conspiracies, there's a tech infusion here. Obviously, I'm sure informed by your time, at Intel. Obviously, you live in Silicon Valley. Do you find that a number of your fantasies will have this kind of tech component to it versus like, this isn't like you're writing Lord of the Rings or something?
Right. I think for any modern story, technology has to be a part of it. Yeah. So the 7th novel I mentioned, it's a dystopian, but there's going to be technology in it. My high fantasy that I wrote, that very first novel I mentioned, that one doesn't really have technology. So, when I think about it now and how I revise it, I'm not sure that I would include it. I think I like it without. And even for Love at Taipei, I initially set it in the 90s when there weren't cell phones as prevalent, and agents and editors actually liked that there weren't cell phones, because that's a different dynamic for the kids. And so I think I took away the cell phones from the kids as much as I could, just to make them like in front of each other, and I don't have to write all these text messages. For the Vale, because part of this kid's journey is learning to live in the real world, he does do a lot of text messaging with his one friend in the real world.
Got it. Okay. And that shows up in the movie or the short film?
So in the short film, it takes place 6 years prior.
Okay.
It's a prequel to this one, and it's called The Vale Origins, where the origins of the Vale, how this inventor family decided that they were going to build this virtual reality world in the first place.
What have you learned is the biggest difference between doing a full-length feature film versus a short film?
So I heard it's actually just as much work.
Okay.
Because you have to get all the costumes, you have to do all the casting, like all these things could actually be done for the 12-minute short or for like the 1 hour, 2 hour long movie.
Right.
The only difference is that you're not filming for as many days. And then it's like, but even post-production, you have to make all the same decisions about the color correction and the music and like all these things that need to get established. Like that's the heavy lift. And then you just apply it. So like I mentioned, we're working on the feature-length film now. I'm writing the script at Ride Back Rise, and we're going to raise. And we're actually also looking for, people who might be interested in brand partnerships. So a lot of the story takes place in invention conventions where technology is being featured, like in the booths next door. So if there are folks that are listening to this podcast who'd be interested in that, like definitely please reach out to me, because we're looking for opportunities to just showcase a variety of cool technologies.
Well, there's the Human X conference, that took place in Vegas last year. It's going to be in San Francisco, and it's all about, it's like, I think they were successful. Their goal was to be like the biggest AI conference.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to, for the film set, we build our own conference, but then like if there's folks that want to be featured, have their brands featured like next door to their booth, that kind of thing. That's like, we're totally open to that.
What's the biggest thing you learned about this project? Or new learnings?
Yeah. Well, it was my directorial debut.
Yep.
So I found that it was actually a really natural fit for me. So again, like I talked about all these threads in my life coming together. Directing is like a deeper level of storytelling. And now I'm working with actors to bring the scenes to life. I'm working with my production designers to design the set, and then my director of photography to figure out like what angle are we going to do? Like when do you go close up? When do you go wide? And so I learned a lot about cameras, actually. That was new for me. I've always like been involved in the storytelling part, even for Love in Taipei, but like working with that technology part is new. But because I come from that tech background, it's not intimidating. It's just like another thing that I can learn.
Yeah. And did you, as a director, I guess, what was the most challenging part of being a director? Because this is the first time, this is your,
my first time.
Yeah, your first time.
Time, for sure. Time on set. That's by design. It's the most limited part. I have a number of interns that come on. They always want to go to set, and like by design, that's like the least part of what I do. So we did set for I think 3 days total, and that's never enough time from what I hear from other directors. But I did feel like, even now I'm like, should we have cut that scene? Like we cut it for time reasons before we even got to set. But I'm like, it would be nice to have that little beat there. And then each scene is filmed like 8 times from different angles. And so like, did you get the exact take that you want in that that mix? So finding that balance of like moving on from a scene, from a particular shot, and making sure that you get the footage you need, because you can never go back to that set again. It's going to be taken down. And even if you wanted to rebuild it, it won't look the same. It won't be the same lighting. You might not be able to get your actors on the same days. So it's one and done. You got to get it right.
Yep.
So I'm really glad that we did so much preparation in advance. But I think at some point you have to balance, like, your producers want to move faster, and you have to figure out like when do you like slow it down, and when do you like just let things go.
It's completed, right?
So we're finishing the animation part of things. So actually, the other thing I learned is I learned to be an animation producer. Like I just learned the pipeline, and we created a very efficient pipeline on our own. So I've learned a lot from working with John Aushma, who is the co-director for Ultraman Rising. So he's
nice.
Emmy nominated, Annie nominated, and then Neil Blevins is my animation production designer. He was at Pixar for 16 years, and just seeing the kinds of comments that they gave to our outside studio is just amazing. Like the details that they caught, ways to bring a scene even more to life and to keep it from being too cluttered. Like I learned a lot from watching their expertise in action.
Do you think you want to do a full-length feature film?
Yeah, we'd love to do the full-length film of this one. That's partly why we did the short. It's proof of concept, and I've had multiple people approach me about fundraising. So I thought about it, and I want to go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's next for you. Do you want to direct that too?
I would love to direct it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's another big swing. I don't know if we'll get it done, but I actually feel really very positive about it. There's been a lot of great momentum. So for example, we got an early acceptance to LA Comic-Con for a panel called The Vale, Enter a New Fantasy Universe. I am completely floored. I'm like, not only did we get into LA Comic-Con, it's just for The Vale. Like that's mind-boggling to me. I'm speaking at San Diego Comic-Con in July. And I mentioned, gotten to a bunch of festivals. And we have a Roblox game that's being developed now. And I'm excited to launch that simultaneously with the book.
Oh, that's
so
very
lots
cool.
of cool things.
You've got a lot going on.
Yeah, it's fun. Like this project is just growing in so many different ways organically.
Right.
And I'm just trying to keep up with it.
That's cool.
So.
But I do like how you take this more evolutionary approach to things, and then see how it keeps going, right? You're not just taking a big swing, just take a big swing. It's like, it's sort of this evolution, right? It gets bigger and bigger, but there's this foundation, this building block, if you will.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's probably been true, just kind of like constantly making sure you have good information about taking those next steps.
Okay. So I've got two last questions for you. One is, and I've asked everyone this, what is your superpower?
I have a new book coming about intergenerational ADHD, and part of it is talking about bringing order to chaos.
Okay.
And so I think I do that. I can take a lot of things, a lot of ideas, a lot of people, and just bring order to it.
Okay. That's a really important life skill for sure. Okay, so we're going to get back to this initial question that I'd asked you about. So is it true you did ballet and were like on a dance squad in high school? This is not on LinkedIn, so I don't know how
it's not on LinkedIn.
accurate this research
I could
is.
add it to LinkedIn.
Yeah. Is this true?
It's true. It's
okay,
true. It's
so,
actually that's why she's a dancer.
Okay.
In Love Boat Taipei.
So you did a lot of dance in high school?
I did, yeah.
Okay. What was it about dance or ballet that like...
Yeah, I don't, it's like one of those things I didn't know, like I just did it my whole life and I loved it.
Okay.
I love moving. I love music and experiencing the music. There's a scene in Love Boat Taipei that I came to where she's kind of screwed up everything and hit rock bottom, and she starts dancing, and that's when she figures out the answers. And it's like that, going into that non-cerebral space where it's not about like thinking your way through it anymore. It's like feeling your way through it. And I think that's what dance does for me. It allows me to experience life through emotions and your body. And I think...
Do you ever do that? Like if you're stuck, you just start dancing?
I did it for Love Boat Taipei. Like that's the reason I wrote that for her, is the same thing happened to me. I was like...
Oh, so process-wise, it's very similar.
It was part of the process.
Oh, wow.
Nobody was
home. And it just ended up in the book.
I just turned on the music and I
started
was
dancing
to it. I figured it out. Like, okay, that's what's going on here.
That's cool.
So, but yeah,
you should have mentioned that when I asked you about routines.
Oh yeah, I haven't really danced for the Vale.
Okay.
The Vale, I guess I get to
Did you dance your whole life?
I did, like, I think starting at 6 or 7, my mom put me in dance lessons and I loved it. So I did ballet. Wow. I was on point. Wow. I was on a dance squad with my school, which is like flag corps. And...
So you've always had this like creative part of you.
Yeah, I just didn't know that I could like lean into it.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I love that. You can thank Andy for that. I shot him an email. Did he tell you about it?
No, you didn't tell me.
Every time I usually ask
the
someone,
the
spouse or the friend.
That's so thoughtful of you. Yeah, all these questions are so thoughtful.
Something that isn't apparent on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So my family knows that I dance, but nobody else knows, except that I've written it up about it. But yeah, like they'll come down, I'll be dancing.
Okay, very cool. Do you still dance a lot?
I do.
Or just when you're stuck?
Just my own. Yeah, just fun. I probably should dance more because I did miss it. I definitely feel like I'm doing a lot of cerebral work these days.
Is that but you don't, dance isn't your form of exercise?
No, I keep wanting to go and take a dance class, but I don't think I can find the right dance class for me because I'm not good enough to be in like some like real studio, but I'm not a beginner. So I don't know where I'll find that.
I don't know that many people who dance at that level, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah. And I don't either. I don't dance at that level.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, Abigail, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey. And I think what's interesting about this is like, you're just in many ways just getting started too, right? So it's not like, oh, I'm done. In many ways, you keep exploring, you keep adding, new opportunities, new things, new mediums that you're working on. So I'm super excited about kind of where this is going, and I'm so excited to see all your success. So
Thank you.
I think your story is truly a testament to the power of reinvention and resilience. I think that's something that really stood out to me and why I wanted to chat with you, because it's something that I think it's difficult for people to make these. I mean, in many respects, I would say that your career pivot was probably a hard pivot, or it was very different, but in the way that you described it, it also prepared you for this new path, which I think for a lot of people, especially me as an outsider looking in, it was like, man, writing novels has nothing to do with, all the things that you had done previously. But in fact, actually, it does. In many respects, it made you better, at what you're doing today, which I think is super interesting.
And vice versa. I think negotiations, which was my strong suit, is storytelling. It's you tell a story to increase the pie for everybody and thread the needles. So
I love that. Well, thank you for everyone for listening in on another episode of Conductive Conversations. For our listeners, if you haven't read Lapo Taipei and any of Abby's other books here, but more importantly, please check out The Vale, which launches on September 16th. And thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep learning, stay curious.